know what I've been doing wrong? I've been recording and re recording this episode. I really should have had this out about a month earlier, but I keep deleting the files because I start to ramble. I know people had told me that rambling can be part of the charm of a podcast, but hey, I want to make sure you actually get something tangible out of the time that we spend together. So let's cross our fingers and hope that this is the recording that makes the cut. Now, listen carefully. You might not notice the cars, or you might notice that there are no cars passing in the background anymore. I did not fix my window. I did not build a new fancy recording studio. I wish. Or I haven't really bought any new expensive equipment. I should. The truth is, I literally moved halfway around the world. I did it out of love for what I do. I absolutely love my day job, and I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to take that work outside of my home court. So I moved to a different place somewhere in the globe. The background sounds are different now, and in so many ways, so am I. Maybe that's why this episode took so long. I needed some time to catch up with myself first. Now, lately I've been trying to build a brand portfolio and a podcast called The Life Stack Skill Human Tech. But since it's very corporatey, that project is a bit serious, rigid, and entirely scripted. It made me realize that it's okay to take a break and create space for other things. So I asked myself, why not go back to my passion project from the pandemic? Why not revive it? And so here we are. And then here I am, trying to understand these incredibly complex emotions we all have when it comes to romantic relationships. And if you have been listening to the podcast long enough, you would know that I will argue that most of these emotions are chemicals firing up in your brain. But that's beside the point. If you hear a tiny squeaking every now and then, that's just me crocheting while I talk. I found that my thoughts they just flow a lot better when my hands are also busy. Before sitting down to map out this season, yes, I've mapped out the whole season. I took a look at our past analytics. I realized that even while I was away, a few of you kept coming back to listen. So thank you, stranger. The data show that the episodes you return to the most are the ones focused on finding a starting point after a breakup. That's exactly where we are beginning today. So, stranger, please take this journey with me. Through 12 episodes, one journey, and hopefully by the end of it, you and I will both have a different perspective on love, loss, and how to begin again. Because that is the question, isn't it? People always say focus on yourself. They say love yourself first. But where do you actually start with that? What does that even look like when you're in pain? Or when you're grieving a relationship? Or when the half that you brought into the table and holding on to feels like it disseminated? If you found your way back here, stranger, welcome back. This is the Midnight Affair, and my name is Lee. Based on our analytics, I know you're likely around my age, or maybe 10 years younger or 10 years older. It matters, stranger, because I'm going to say it out loud. I'm in my 40s. And I didn't get to this point in life without my fair share of heartbreaks. And maybe that's why you're here too, because you're probably in one, or maybe you just want to listen to that share of heartbreaks because you also had them too. What really fuels me to record this is the simple thought that I wish there had been a guidebook or at least a voice mirroring exactly what I was going through when my world cracked open when I was younger. We all grew up on fairy tales. It's not just Disney. I mean the entire cultural narrative around romance and romantic relationships. We are conditioned with the mindset that we are just a half, wandering through the earth looking for the other half to make us a whole. This reminds me of a story I heard a lifetime ago when I was in high school. It was probably in one of those traditional First Friday school masses that we had. And yes, I'm from an all girls school, so we had them. The priest told a homily that shook my foundations, and I've been trying to demystify the thought, its imagery in my head ever since. He described a shape traveling through life, a half circle. Now it rolled along the path, desperate to find its matching piece. Along the way, it met other shapes. It encountered a half square and tried to couple with it, but it didn't fit. The square was simply too cornery. I don't even know if that's a word. Anyway, it was too sharp and full of rigid corners, so they broke off. The half circle kept rolling until it met the squiggle. It tried to force a fit there too, but that failed because they were entirely squiggly. Every time they tried to roll forward together, they just veered off into useless curves. So they parted ways. The half circle kept rolling blindly, round and round. But one day it hit a massive rock on the path. It stopped. It looked down at itself and noticed something startling. Look, hey, I'm not a half circle anymore. I am completely round. It realized that it has been rolling through the mud, grit, and the terrain of life with dirt, soil, leaves, and debris that had naturally filled its gaps. The journey itself had packed into its hollow spaces until it became a full, unbroken circle. By the way, you might have heard a different variation of the story. I'm not even sure if the second shape was a squiggle, but I'm sure of the square. Hearing that story as a teenager broke the fairy tale narrative that we are empty halves waiting for the other half. Since then, it stayed at the back of my mind for years to come. However, knowing a truth intellectually doesn't always mean that you live it. Sometimes the fairy tale wins. Sometimes that's exactly what how we choose to look at romance. That's exactly what I chose because it felt magical that way. It took going through multiple broken relationships, reaching a point where I honestly believed something was fundamentally wrong with me, believing I was completely impossible to love. And I'm not just saying that, that's true. And it took a life changing separation, separating from my ex husband, to finally understand that priest's sermon. You cannot safely enter a relationship as a half. So, right then, I felt I don't want to be a half anymore. We always ask ourselves the same post breakup question: how did I lose myself in that relationship? I came into it with such a strong sense of identity. So, how did I walk away feeling like a shadow of who I used to be? It happens because we continuously enter relationships as halves. We repeat our own internal emotional patterns and history, expecting a different outcome. Who said that? Einstein? History warns us that it will keep repeating itself until we actually learn the lesson. Who said that? That's a cliche that we all know. We learn a lot of lessons along the way, but we completely miss the foundational rule of becoming a whole. It's incredibly easy to throw around the phrase, love starts within yourself. But it only carries weight when you realize that self directed love is the actual soil that patches your missing pieces and makes you a whole. You cannot give away what you don't have. If you're looking for external love to fill an internal deficit, you will never have enough. You have to plant that love within yourself and let it grow. Give it time and let it grow. If my younger self were here right now, she would probably try to debate me on this, fiercely defending the fairy tale. Because why not? Even when you get married, what do they preach? Two become one. But operating only as a half only invites deep confusion. You find someone, you step into their space as a half, and suddenly a toxic dynamic takes over. You try to heal them, they try to heal you, or worse, you care intensely while they remain completely indifferent. That is the trap of two halves colliding. But what if instead of jumping to the next connection, you take a real break? A real break to give yourself time to think and reflect. What if you look in the mirror and figure out how to patch your own quote unquote halfness? Let me clarify. I'm not talking about superficial self care like taking a trip to the spa or getting your hair done or traveling outside of your country to meet new people or actually meeting new people and jumping into rebound relationships. No, I'm talking about a radical mirror test. Hear me out. Right now, this is what you know. You are capable of loving another person with an immense breathtaking intensity. But stop for a while and ask yourself, can you honestly say you love yourself to that same exact degree? Think about it in terms of the patterns we tolerate and accept. See, red flags are entirely subjective. We all have unique baselines for what we can accept and what we can tolerate. Sure, there are basic human decencies, but those are out of the question because those are basic human decencies. So go ask yourself, when they hurt you or show their shortcomings, you can forgive them effortlessly. Do you extend that same forgiveness to your own shortfalls? When they displayed bad behavior, you constructed elaborate excuses for them. Did you give yourself the same grace when you stumble? You nurtured them. You brought them coffee or wrapped them in a warm blanket when they were exhausted. Did you offer that same cozy protective comfort to yourself now that you are feeling completely alone? Many of us have a habit of constantly jumping from one person to the next because we are terrified of the quiet, of being alone, of being silent. I didn't automatically have the wisdom to see this. If I were very honest, my youngest sister had always told me that I was in some sort of connection and really never had the time. But then I was granted the privilege of figuring this out because I'm currently navigating a very long distance relationship. And this physical distance, the heavy silence that exists between me and my special person, humbled me. And it handed me a rare gift, the time to think, reflect deeply, and realize the power of being a whole. When you walk into a relationship as a whole, you aren't just showing up with an empty cup waiting to be filled with love. You are bringing your authentic, unshakable self. When you are a whole, it becomes vastly easier to set clean boundaries. It becomes easier to align on goals, and it becomes easier to rationally evaluate whether the dynamic is healthy or if it's time to walk away. External support networks are beautiful. Lean on your friends, talk to your parents, understand why you are loved by the people in your life. But if that internal foundation is fractured, no amount of external scaffolding can keep you standing. I I probably am not yet a complete whole, but I've reached a point where I have drawn a definitive line in the sand. I look at my life and I realize I don't want to be a half anymore. And I've told myself that if my current relationship doesn't work out, it will be my last romantic endeavor. I'd rather pour my energy into discovering the beautiful dimensions of life than spending my remaining years constantly restarting the romantic clock. Because of the age gap in my relationship, and I'm telling you a secret, I consciously give my partner privileges and freedom that outside of servers might find questionable. I'm not terrified that he's going to walk away one day and he would leave me hanging. I've given myself the grace to accept reality as it is. The faster you accept reality, the lighter your life becomes. It's the exact same harsh lesson that the entire world had to learn during the pandemic. At any given second, you cannot control or accurately guess what another human being is thinking. Trying to read hidden word patterns, decoding body language, or playing emotional guessing games is an absolute waste of time and energy. Don't take it from someone who's really interested in these kinds of things, having seen too many episodes of Criminal Minds. I shifted my mindset to focus on the dichotomy of control. The only things that you can be certain of right now are what you feel and what actually happened. And I'm getting this because, at this age, I'm done with drama. I've had more than enough of it to last a lifetime. So whenever I can find peace, I will gladly embrace it. Remember that every romantic dynamic consists of three distinct entities. And you can listen back to our episodes. So there is you, there's the other person, and there is the relationship itself. And that relationship requires a daily active choice from both sides. Sometimes a breakup is simply the cold reality that you choose to stay and they did it. If you stumbled upon this episode and you're going through a breakup, I hear you. I know it hurts deeply. I mean, every single breakup hurts because you invested real time, profound hope, and genuine effort. But please remember, honoring that pain is okay. Pain is the visceral conviction that you are alive. But do not let it consume you to the point where you completely lose sight of yourself. Stop falling into the mental trap of spending hours on end on YouTube analyzing attachment styles or trying to diagnose your ex. Please don't. It only serves to better your self worth. It's like the classic analogy of a frog in slowly boiling water. If you don't step away from the fire, the heat will eventually destroy you. Now, instead of that, I'm gonna ask you to get a pen and paper. You can pause this episode if you want, or you can write down what I'm gonna say and you can try this out after you listen to the whole episode. I want you to do a practical pen and paper exercise. Now, I'm not going to ask you to write the pros and cons of the relationship. No, please don't. Stop. The relationship is done and gone. And analyzing their flaws, what could have happened, what could have made you stay, or why is the relationship good or bad, those won't save you now. What I want you to do is to take a deep breath, close your eyes, and write down exactly how you love them. Write the ways you gave your heart, how you showed up, and how you stood up for them. Once that list is in front of you, look at it closely. Look at that immense, beautiful capacity for love and ask yourself honestly, have I ever loved myself this way? Your starting point begins by taking the same exact love, that fierce loyalty, that tenderness, and redirecting it inward. If you stood up for them, start standing for yourself now. Nobody wins in a breakup. You're not the loser, they're not the winner. If anything, it is a concrete proof of your profound, courageous capacity to love deeply. Use this painful chapter to become a better partner to yourself or to someone else in the future. You can take that immense love and redirect it towards your friends, your families, your children, a new passion, and hobbies that make your soul feel alive. Ultimately, being a whole isn't about building high walls and turning yourself into an isolated island. And after all, nobody's an island. True wholeness is about landing firmly on your 2 feet. It means that when you eventually reach your hand out to hold somebody else's, you are doing it entirely out of desire, never out of desperation. You hold their hand because you want to, not because you'll fall flat on your face without them. Let the goal of becoming whole be your blinking star in the dark for this episode. I promise you, if you stick with me through this season, we are both going to land with our feet firmly on the ground. Thank you, as always, stranger, for listening. This is the Midnight Affair. I am Lee. Keep safe. Sweet dreams. Good night, stranger.